This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Every year, sports fans across the country tune into March Madness, watching 64 men's basketball teams duke it out until only one remains. Like years past, millions watched the games, made brackets, and cheered on their favorite teams. Only this time, all eyes were on the women, with standout players like Angel Reese, Juju Watkins, and Caitlin Clark to root for. Viewers were more invested in the women's tournament this year than ever before. In fact, for the first time in history, the women's championship game drew higher viewership than the men's, averaging a whopping 19 million viewers throughout the broadcast. And even now that the tournament's over, people just can't stop talking about women's basketball. Lindsay Darvin, assistant professor in the Department of Sport Management at Syracuse University, says the recent hype is from the Caitlin Clark effect.
It's happening fast right now because of this Caitlin Clark effect that people like to call it. And Caitlin Clark has a lot to do with it, obviously. Her popularity is helping the game grow and helping women's sport grow. But it's been kind of a steady climb to this point. I think a few things are at play. Social media is huge right now for women, especially women athletes and women teams. And women athletes are better at using social media. And women fans enjoy using social media for their sport content more than fans of men's sports. So it's been a few different things, but I definitely think that some of that organic marketing ability has been incredibly helpful. And now you see linear TV catching on, but also streaming is catching on too. And women's sports are being broadcast through streaming more than on linear TV. And that's been helpful as well. So it's almost like let's not wait until everyone else catches up. We're going to grow this ourselves. And then through what happened this year with the NCAA women's tournament, it just was kind of like the right place at the right time and everything boomed all at once.
If you're unfamiliar, Caitlin Clark broke the NCAA all-time scoring record this year and was the first overall pick at the WNBA draft. She's been a big part of the elevated media attention, but this isn't the first time women's basketball has been all over social media. 3 years ago, the women's tournament went viral online, but not for the reason you'd think.
There was a woman student at the NCAA tournament, basically showing the dichotomy between being a male athlete and a female athlete, showing that the men had all of this incredible weight room afforded to them, and the women had literally a small weight rack that you would find at a really bad hotel available to them. And they clearly had the room for it. They clearly had kind of all of the bells and whistles, and they were equal competitors. And there was just a massive viral social firestorm. And with that came a huge uproar from partners, from fans, from players from around the world, professional, college, parents of players saying, what is happening that the NCAA, who clearly is able to support their men's tournament in this way, can't support their women's tournament in this way.
That's Thayer Lavielle, Executive Vice President of the Collective, the women's division of Wasserman. Fast forward to the following season, and women were allowed to use the March Madness logo for the first time. The NCAA also expanded access to services and amenities, ensuring it was equal to the men's teams. Lavielle credits these changes to the 77% sponsorship increase that year, as well as record attendance at games. When looking at why women's sports hasn't reached the same level of success as men's, Darvin says it has nothing to do with interest. The interest has always been there, but the support from organizations hasn't.
The NCAA has essentially suppressed the market for women's sport since the passage of Title IX. They've always been a little bit fearful about what the growth of women's sport is going to mean for men's sport, and they didn't think there was space for both. I think what people need to understand is it has kind of been this intentional suppression of the market because there has been fear that there's not enough revenue to go around for everybody, which we are seeing is just absolutely not true.
Speaking of revenue, elite women's sports is projected to make over $1 billion this year, up 300% from 2021. But while women's sports is clearly an extremely profitable business, the athletes aren't being paid as such. During her rookie WNBA year, Caitlin Clark will make just $76,000. Compare this to Victor Wembanyama, the first overall pick in the NBA draft, who will earn $12 million.
I think what that did was really land with fans who just came into college basketball and really saw her and others' prowess on the court to say, wow, these women can actually play ball. And what do you mean that's what she's making, and the kind of the outrage of that.
This disparity is an issue across all of women's sports. In 2016, the national women's soccer team fought the U.S. Soccer Federation for equal pay, even though they won 2 consecutive World Cups and generated more income than the men. To combat these pay inequities, female athletes are forced to find other sources of income, such as social media sponsorships, NIL deals, or even playing overseas. Unlike male athletes, they can't make a living solely from playing their sport.
We did a study recently with Royal Bank of Canada, with RBC, that looked at the value of a woman athlete. And what we found was that on average, across many different sports leagues and teams, men make 21 times what women make on the field of play. And so what that means is that women athletes have to make 82% of their income off the field of play. So imagine going to your day job, and then you have to go get a job to make 82% of your income.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
While part of the massive wage gap can be attributed to women's sports making less money, their value is climbing by the day. Now that the division is getting more organizational support and media coverage, athletes will have a better chance to succeed, both in the NCAA and professionally. Lavielle says the next step is to add more leagues and teams, which will expand the business and give more female athletes a chance to go pro.
Another study we did last year, actually, we looked at the coverage number going up of less than 4% of women's coverage or sports media coverage dedicated to women's sports going to 16%. What was really interesting about that study was actually that 53% of D1 athletics were actually women's competitions. And then when you looked at the professional number of competitions for, the number of competitions for women's sports versus men's sports, only 8% were women's. And that's just because there aren't enough places for people to graduate to. So you have more incredible WNBA possible players than you have WNBA positions available. So the more that we're able to increase leagues and teams, the more we'll see some of these superstar athletes coming out of college in tons of different areas of athletics that we'll be able to watch and continue to cheer on.
She adds that fans have the power to make a difference too. If there's a women's sports team or particular athlete you want to support, the best way to do it is to go and watch them play. Women's games are typically cheaper and more accessible, but that could easily change in the coming months and years. While most of the recent buzz has revolved around basketball, it's important to recognize that interest in all women's sports has been climbing steadily for years. And now that these teams and athletes are becoming more mainstream, they'll need our support to keep the momentum going. It turns out the Caitlin Clark effect is creating a movement that extends far beyond just basketball.
Look no further than professional women's hockey, right? So they are, breaking records almost every game. It's hard to keep up with all the records that they're breaking in terms of the amount of fans that are attending these events. I think that they just hit 18 or 19,000 fans at one of their events, right? So women's hockey is definitely coming up. I would say even like a women's lacrosse is definitely seeing a lot of growth. It's going to carry over to the Olympics as well, which are coming up. So the momentum is really great right now for this and all of this growth. Traditionally, women athletes see really great coverage numbers during the Olympics. So that's probably just going to continue to increase with the Summer Olympics coming up in Paris. So yes, it's transcending all sport. It's not just women's basketball. And obviously women's soccer has been at the top for a very long time, and we're going to continue to see that grow as well too. The growth has been there for all women's sports, and what's so great about women's athletics is once one sport does well, we tend to see that it carries over to the others.
To find out more about Lindsay Darvin, Thayer Lavielle, and all of our featured guests, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galanti. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.